Have you ever bought something thinking it would change your life, only to realize a week later that it's just sitting in your closet with the tag still on? What if we told you that most of the stuff we buy isn't really about the product at all, but about trying to fix something we feel is broken inside us? So here's something wild that we need to talk about. When we really sat down and looked at our bank statements from the past year, something pretty uncomfortable became crystal clear. At least 70% of the things we bought weren't because we actually needed them or even really wanted them. We bought them because somewhere deep down, we felt like we weren't enough. That new jacket? We thought it would make us look more put together, more like someone who has their life figured out. That online course we never finished? We bought it thinking it would finally make us feel smart enough or successful enough. And that fancy coffee maker that's still in the box? Yeah, we thought owning it would somehow make us the kind of person who has their mornings under control. The thing is, we're not alone in this. According to recent studies, the average person makes around 60% of their purchases based on emotional triggers rather than actual need. We're all out here shopping our feelings, thinking that the next purchase will be the one that finally makes us feel complete. But here's what nobody talks about. Every single one of those purchases is usually connected to an insecurity we're trying to cover up or fix. Let's get real for a second. When we scroll through social media and see someone living what looks like the perfect life, what do? We open up a shopping app. When we feel anxious about work or stressed about relationships, where do we end up? Adding things to our cart. There's actually a term for this now, and it's called retail therapy. But what they don't tell you is that this therapy doesn't actually heal anything. It just puts a temporary band-aid on whatever we're feeling insecure about. Think about the last thing you bought on impulse. Now think about what you were feeling right before you bought it. Were you scrolling through someone's vacation photos, feeling boring? Were you comparing yourself to a friend who just got promoted? Were you feeling left out or behind in some way? Most of the time, if we're honest with ourselves, there was an uncomfortable feeling we were trying to escape. And buying something new gave us this tiny hit of excitement, this brief moment where we felt like we were doing something to improve ourselves or our situation. But here's where it gets tricky. Companies know this about us. Marketing teams literally study human psychology and our insecurities to figure out how to sell us stuff. They know that if they can make us feel like we're missing out or not good enough without their product, we'll hand over our money. A study from the Journal of Consumer Research found that advertisers specifically target feelings of inadequacy to boost sales, and it works incredibly well. When we see an ad that makes us feel like everyone else has already figured out some life hack that we're missing, our first instinct isn't to question it. Our first instinct is to buy whatever they're selling so we can catch up. Now let's break down the actual insecurities that drive most of our purchases, because once we see them clearly, we can't unsee them. First up, there's the appearance insecurity. This is probably the biggest one for most of us. We buy clothes, skincare, makeup, gym memberships, supplements, all because somewhere along the way we got the message that we're not attractive enough as we are. The global beauty and personal care market is worth over $500 billion, and it keeps growing every year. That's not because everyone suddenly decided they needed 17 different serums. It's because we've been convinced that looking a certain way is the key to being valued. Then there's the success insecurity. This one shows up in all the productivity tools, courses, books, and gadgets we buy, thinking they'll make us more accomplished. We see other people hitting milestones and we panic, thinking we're falling behind. So we buy that expensive planner, that productivity app subscription, that course on how to wake up at 5 in the morning, all while telling ourselves this will be the thing that finally makes us successful. But the truth is, we usually don't even use half of what we buy, because the problem was never that we lacked the right tools. The problem was we felt like we weren't measuring up to some invisible standard. Social insecurity is another huge one. We buy things to fit in, to impress people, to prove we belong in certain spaces. Ever bought something just because everyone else in your friend group had it? Or upgraded your phone not because your old one stopped working, but because you didn't want to be the one with the outdated model? That's social insecurity talking. We're so afraid of being judged or left out that we'll spend money we don't have on things we don't need just to feel like we're part of the group. And then there's lifestyle insecurity, which is this feeling that everyone else has figured out how to live better than we have. This is why we buy kitchen gadgets for recipes we'll never make, camping gear for trips we'll never take, and home decor that we think will finally make our space look like those perfectly styled rooms we see online. We're not buying the actual items, we're buying the fantasy of being the kind of person who lives that way. Here's the part that really stings. Even when we do buy the thing, even when we get that little rush of excitement, it doesn't fix the insecurity. It can't. Because insecurities aren't about what we lack on the outside, they're about how we feel on the inside. You can buy the most expensive skincare routine in the world, but if you fundamentally believe you're not attractive, you'll still find something to criticize when you look in the mirror. You can buy every productivity tool ever created, but if you believe you're lazy or not smart enough, you'll still feel like a failure. Research shows that the happiness boost we get from buying something new lasts on average about 3 days. 3 days! And then we're back to feeling exactly how we felt before, except now we're a little bit broker and our closet is a little bit fuller. This is why we end up in these cycles where we keep buying and buying, always chasing that next purchase that we think will be different. But it never is, because we're trying to solve an internal problem with external solutions. What we're really looking for, when we strip away all the marketing and the shopping and the stuff, what we're actually looking for is pretty simple. We want to feel enough. We want to feel worthy of love and respect and belonging exactly as we are. We want to feel like we're doing okay in life, that we're on the right path, that we matter. And somewhere along the way, we started believing that things could give us those feelings, that the right outfit would make us confident, that the right gadgets would make us productive, that the right lifestyle products would make us happy. But confidence doesn't come from a closet full of trendy clothes. It comes from doing hard things and proving to yourself that you're capable. Productivity doesn't come from apps and planners. It comes from being clear about what actually matters to you and focusing on that. Happiness doesn't come from having a picture-perfect life. It comes from being present and grateful for what's already here. So how do we actually break this cycle? It starts with getting uncomfortable for a minute. Before we buy something, we need to pause and ask ourselves what we're really trying to fix. Are we buying this because it genuinely adds value to our life, or are we buying it to cover up an insecurity? What feeling are we trying to create? And is there a way to create that feeling without spending money? Most of the time, when we really examine it, we realize that what we need isn't another product. What we need is to work on that underlying insecurity. Maybe we need to spend time figuring out our own style instead of copying what we see online. Maybe we need to get honest about our priorities instead of buying our way to productivity. Maybe we need to cultivate real friendships instead of trying to impress people with our stuff. Look, we're not saying never buy anything or that wanting nice things makes you shallow. That's not it at all. What we're saying is that when most of our purchases are driven by insecurity, we end up with a lot of stuff and the same empty feeling. We end up broke, cluttered, and still not feeling like enough. And that's a cycle worth breaking, because we already are enough right now without buying a single thing. Once we really believe that, our relationship with shopping changes completely. We stop needing things to prove our worth, and we start choosing things that genuinely serve our lives. And that shift, that's where real freedom lives.